This is Omar for New Street Culture. Today I got my boy in, Jerome, and we're going to discuss some current affairs. How you doing, bro? You cool?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
All right, so let's get straight into it. So first of all, I wanted to ask you, what do you think about large corporations putting out statements in support of Black Lives Matter?
I think people think it's a lot more polarising than it is, personally. I don't really mind that much.
Okay.
I think people really, really care about it. I think people think they're almost trying to profit off it.
Yeah.
And I believe that too. I think they're right. But at the same time, I think as long as it helps people get what they want to get and it looks like a unified stance, I think it's almost like one of them things that's going to come with it.
What?
Even if they was doing it for the right reasons, even if they was doing it because they believed it, which I do think some of them do. You look at companies like Ben & Jerry's.
Yeah.
I almost feel like it's so much more genuine than some of the other companies that have released statements.
I think so as well, but the thing is, like I have an issue with it if it's not genuine.
Yeah.
But how do we know if it's genuine?
You never do, and that's the difficult thing. So that they could release a statement and it could be genuine.
Yeah.
You can never prove it. But I think the fact that it shows this unified stance, we've never had a point in history where these large corporations have really spoke on things like this.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Whether they're doing it for profit or whether they're doing it genuinely.
Yeah.
It feels like there's this unified view that like we're done with this kind of stuff happening now.
Yeah.
And I think that is the more important thing.
I suppose that wouldn't have happened before as well.
And I think even if they're doing it genuinely, of course they're going to profit off it.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you know what I mean? So when Adidas before all of this happened, when Adidas did that marketing campaign with Colin Kaepernick,
Yeah.
of course they made loads of money on it, but does that make it not genuine?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Is something still genuine when you profit off it? I think that's a totally different question. But I don't think that affects the impact of it. And I think the impact is what matters around that.
What do you think people actually really do want out of it?
I think it's difficult because...
What do you want out of it?
I don't know. Because I think you can change laws all day long, but it won't change the way people feel.
Yeah.
And people obviously feel the way they feel, don't they? I think the same way we're entitled to our views, they're entitled to theirs. I think people should be allowed to say whatever they want. I believe in freedom of speech.
Yeah.
I also believe in consequence. I believe that you can't walk out your house and say some wild stuff to someone and expect nothing to happen.
Yeah.
Same way, if you walked out your house and did any crime, any hate crime, of course something's going to happen.
Is there freedom of speech if there's consequence?
Yeah, because consequence and speech is two different things. You can say whatever you like. No one's ever said that you can't.
Yeah.
No one's ever said that you can't go out and say whatever you like. But you've got to understand that there are consequences for the things that you do. Same way you can leave your house and do whatever you want, but there are consequences.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think even though the consequences are lawful, it's like that for anything. Like you could jump off a climbing frame and break your leg. You're free to do that. But you've got to understand that there are consequences to the things that you do.
Yeah, I'm with you still.
And I think people like freedom, they don't like consequence, but you can't have one without the other.
How do we train people to police themselves into accepting, like, the consequence of what they say?
I think it's difficult because I think inherently people, like even myself, you don't really ever want to take blame for the things that you do. Yeah. Because it's an admission that you've done something wrong. People don't want to feel like they've ever done anything wrong.
Well, you have to, though.
I do. But I think even saying to people like you should police them, it feels aggressive. It feels like an attacking statement, doesn't it? So when you take, like if you turn around to someone and say you need to police the way you act, like people don't really like when you talk to them like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you do have to police what you say.
I think that's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
Like, I try and self-police as much as possible, and then I think the outcome of that is my life will be smoother.
I think it goes back to the freedom thing. People want the freedom to not self-police.
Yeah.
People don't like someone encroaching on their freedoms. They don't like being told what to do.
Yeah.
They don't like some person that they've never met before coming up to them and telling them what they can and can't say.
I hear you.
And I think it's hard to get past that. It's hard to get past the stranger coming up to you in the street and telling you what you can and can't say. I don't think that makes them right by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that's the way it is. And I think we need to manage our expectations of people. There's an idealistic world that we all want, and then there's the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
And we need to match our approach with the reality, not with what we want.
You see, like when we're talking about like companies putting out blanket statements or putting out statements, like, and we're having an opinion on what the company is doing.
Yeah.
Like how how do we, before we get to the companies and the organizations doing that, how do we look at ourselves and say, what are we doing, or what statement am I putting out, what message am I putting out?
I think that comes with a lot of different things. I think some people are just introspective inherently. Some people are just like that.
Yeah.
Some people don't really like to look at that. I don't know if it's a maturity thing. I don't really know the answer to that one. I think always criticising yourself and the things that you do and the way you handle situations is a part of growing.
Yeah.
It's a part of maturing as a person. And I just think some people just don't do that. I think some people do it. And you're always going to get that. I think you're always going to get someone that doesn't agree. You're always going to get someone that doesn't believe the things that you believe. And it's not about having everyone think the same. It's about noticing that people are different, noticing that people live different lifestyles, and accepting them for that, and accepting their differences and loving their differences. I think that's where equality comes from. It's not about not seeing colour. It's not about almost ignoring race. It's about accepting race and living anyway. Do you know what I mean? And just moving on.
Like helping us to all live together.
Exactly. And I think people's understanding of what's racist and what's not is an individual opinion to some people. Yeah. So they think, like, so you'll see someone say something offensive, you might check them on it, and they'll be like, well, that's not offensive. But who's to say what is and what isn't? I think there's some things that are overtly offensive that everyone can agree on. Yeah. But then there's, I think people call them microaggressions. That's more down to circumstance. And it's almost hard for some people to read the room in a way. Yeah, so they'll say something that they might say to one person, but it's not okay to you. But I think it's like that with anything. I think that's a bit of a cop-out excuse when they use that. Like, oh, I can say that to my other friend and that's fine. Yeah, but you can say things to someone that you know that you can't say to a stranger. That's just part of being socially mobile, isn't it? I do think also sometimes people are so quick to tear down their allies at times like this. So these companies will do a statement which is on paper the right thing to do. Yeah. But then if people don't think that statement's genuine, they'll tear the company down, and it's almost like, what do you want them to do? Is pledging money the right thing to do? Is like what is the right thing? And
that's what I was saying. Like, I think that, like, you see, if we all individually look at ourselves more, then you have a greater impact on what's just around you in your little social circle. Yeah. So then, like, if everyone takes that approach, there's people in different positions at different levels in different organizations in different walks of life, and everyone has an impact wherever they are. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I personally think a lot of that is what's missing, because a lot of the time we look outwards and we face, like, if me and you have an issue, it's easier for me to blame you than blame myself.
Exactly. And I think there is a lot of throwing stones in glass houses right now. Yeah. People always want to point the finger. People don't ever want to point the finger to themselves. Yeah. But opposing to that, there's people that you'll say things like there are inherent issues in our society, and people will use the counters as like a cop-out to try and prove that it's not real. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So you talk about, let's say you say something about police brutality, then people will say, well, black people kill black people. It's like, yeah, but they don't kill black people just because they're black. And that's the issue that's trying to be... I'm not saying police do that, because I don't think they do. I don't think all of them do. But I think, to me, police are people, ain't it? Yeah. And there's good and bad people. Yeah. And so there's good and bad police. That's just a given. Simple as that. That's just a given. And I don't think people should defund the police, personally. I think they should be held accountable when they do things wrong, just like anyone else.
That's the issue, in my opinion. Yeah. Like, it doesn't appear that they are being held accountable. No. It doesn't. And then that's when we have situations like this, things spiral out of hand. And there's these blanket statements like all police, like, they're not. They're just not, are they? They're not. Because I feel like we get into the weird situation where we're judging them by standards that we're moaning about us being judged by. Yeah. So if someone has a blanket statement about all black people, that's an issue. It's a huge issue that we're trying to overcome. Yeah. It's the stereotypes. But then if you turn around and say, well, all police are bad, that's you projecting that onto someone else. That's not right either. Like, me personally, I've experienced like good police and bad police. Yeah, exactly. And to me, that makes sense. Exactly. It's just life, isn't it? Yeah. And I just think as long as the really bad police are held accountable for the things that they do, the thing is, there's no problem. Like, obviously, in that profession, there isn't space for bad police.
Yeah, exactly, because they're basically, their job is a hazard. The whole job is a hazard.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You're basically walking around with a target on your back. You are there to uphold the peace. You're basically signing up to be the front line against crime and like the general population.
So based on that, don't you think the consequences for when they do something wrong should be greater?
No, because at the same time they are just people. So it's like, we shouldn't let them get away with things just because they're police, but we shouldn't treat them worse just because they're police.
I'm with that.
They should just be held accountable just like you or me, or just like anyone else. It's about equality. It's not about getting one up, I don't think.
I'm with you.
But I think even that in itself might be a controversial statement. I think people think because they get a lot more powers than the normal population, they should get a lot worse sentences because of the abuse of that power. I don't know. I
think that's where the issue comes.
Yeah.
More than anything.
I think there should be safeguards in place so they're not allowed to abuse that power.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
But I think to sign up and do that as a job, knowing the social stigma around policing, you've almost got to empathise with it. Do you know what I mean? In a way. Because it's a very difficult job to do. I wouldn't do it. Personally, I would never do it. Because you're just signing up to deal with this stuff all day, every day. Like crime, you could get stabbed, you could get shot.
Yeah.
And that doesn't justify their actions, because I think sometimes you see these things, and even objectively you see some of these body cam images of what happens, and you just think, like, there's just no way that someone in their right mind would handle a situation like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm with you.
But at the same time, in that situation, like how would I handle it? Laws in society are put into place to stop bad people from doing things.
Yeah.
Them laws should hold police accountable as well, so the bad police can't do the things that they do. But it won't stop the good police from doing their job, and it's that almost tight tolerance that they've got to work in.
Are they here to police us, or are they here to serve us? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it depends how you look at that.
I think people sometimes abuse the public servant thing, though, because on the other side, I've also seen people abuse police on video and thought, oh, you're in the wrong in that situation.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Sometimes people are like, and I think that's what gives the people ammo. When police do act wrong, they say, well, every time police stop you on camera, you're recording them and you're being rude to them, and this is why they act like this to everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's justified. I don't think it's justified, but that's the counter argument that's used, and I feel like you can't give people ammo for the counter argument. Do you know what I mean?
I think that a lot of the time when police are stopping people, in my opinion, they're stopping them for no obvious reason.
Yeah. And that's where I feel like the laws that police work within are too vague. Things like
suspicion.
Just a lot of the vague words of laws, and it. So like appropriate force.
Yeah.
Reasonable suspicion.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
What does it mean?
What is reasonable suspicion? And in their, because they're people, they've got their own prejudices. If their prejudices is against a minority, not even black, they could say that I'm reasonably suspicious because I only ever see your demographic as criminals on TV, so I'm suspicious.
I hear.
And I just think that's dangerous.
I hear.
What is reasonable force?
What is reasonable force?
Because when you open up things to discussion, it's not the laws aren't good enough.
Yeah.
It should be concrete. What is reasonable force? Like it opens up for things like what happens in these police brutality cases to be up for discussion, and they just shouldn't be. Yeah. They shouldn't be.
Yeah.
If you kill someone in the street, police enforce laws. They're not judges, they're not juries, they're not executioners. They shouldn't be killing people in the street that aren't trying, do you know what I mean, that aren't violent offenders. Why are non-violent offenders getting killed in the street? That's just not right.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. But then when you have things like appropriate force, if you that opens then up for discussion. It shouldn't be open for discussion.
Have you noticed a lot of large organisations, brands started to push a lot more like black orientated content?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think it's good.
Yeah.
I know it's almost like there's something in it for everyone. I understand that these brands and the marketing people in these brands understand why they're doing these things, and they're doing it tactically. Yeah. But if that helps push minority demographics to get exposure in the media, I don't see the problem.
How long does it have to last for?
I think it has to be an ongoing thing. I don't think it can ever go back. I think it's important for kids to grow up and see people like them on TV, whatever demographic they are, whatever sexuality they are, colour, creed. It's important, and I think it's perfectly depicted in like the box office return for something like Black Panther, and how it depicted African culture respectfully, almost. Do you know what I mean? And people flocked out to see it because there's just nothing really like that out there. That high profile. Do you know what I mean?
I hear you.
And I think it's important for kids. Like you're looking at Halloween and you're seeing like kids of colour dressing up like that because that's what they
like
gravitate towards, because that's what they like associate with themselves, and I think it's so important.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's so important, and I think you can idolise anyone of any race. Like, don't get me wrong, you can, of course you can, innit? Like you've got idols. People have football idols, any idol,
and you should.
But I do think it's important to see people of different colour on TV, on radio, on everything, because it not only shows you that it can be done, but it just shows the inclusive environment that we live in. Like we live in one of the most multicultural places in the country.
Exactly.
So it should be representative on that in every way.
It's more of an accurate reflection of the world that we live in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
Being a mixed race man.
Yeah.
How do you think the world sees you?
I don't know. I think it's changed as I've grown up. Because when I was younger, I was a lot lighter.
Okay.
But I think as I've grown up, it's almost like the depiction of you changes.
In what way?
I don't know. It's quite hard to put your foot down. Like sometimes people will say things to you that you're a bit like you don't know if they're saying it because, do you know what I mean?
No.
I feel like sometimes people say things to you and it's open to interpretation whether they're saying it because of your demographic or just because they're saying it.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been asked questions since growing up that can be argued that aren't even offensive, but like they just make me think like, why would you ask something like that? It's like if someone asks you like, where are you from, and you say, oh, I'm from Birmingham, and then they're like, no, where are you really from? Like, where's your family from?
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you inquisitive, or are you presuming that I'm not from here? I just don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't find it offensive. I don't mind, but it does sometimes make, and I don't even know if I'm right to think that. And I think that's where the self-reflecting comes in.
Yeah, you could be looking too deep into the question.
Yeah, because the person could just be asking. There's no problem with that. I've got no issues with that.
Do you think that the world sees you as like mixed race, or do they see you as black, or do they see you as white, or is it different in different social circles? I've
sometimes felt, you know what, 90% of the time I don't feel like the world sees me as a specific colour. Do you know what I mean?
Cool.
But sometimes I've been treated in a way that my friends that are fully black would like, yeah, that's like normal. And that's when I felt like, okay, they obviously see me as black. Do you know what I mean? But like day-to-day life when I'm talking to people, it's very hard to put your hands on the way that they see you, isn't it?
Yeah.
So people don't tell you the way that they think of you.
Yeah.
I feel like most people just polite, forthcoming that I've spoke to. But I've had situations where I've been treated away. I've just thought like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And even speaking to some like people of colour that I know, like fully black people, Asian people, Indian people.
Yeah.
And some of them will say that I've experienced more stuff that they've experienced, and I think that's crazy.
Well, that's something that we've spoke about before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's really crazy if you think about it, because someone like as light as me, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You would never have thought it.
Yeah.
And people would try and say like, there's no way that you've ever experienced racism, kind of thing. Even, I don't know, for education and stuff, I've had people say things like you're not black, you don't act black. But to me, what is acting black? Because everyone in my family acts like me, and they're all fully black. So to me, this is being black. To me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're really saying like, I don't know what they're really saying. Are they really saying, oh, you don't wear tracksuits all the time, or you don't act a certain way?
You don't act rude.
You don't fit the stereotypes of black that I have.
Yeah.
Which may be whatever. It may be aggressive. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I feel like someone trying to discount your race just because of the way you act. Like, being black to me is not the way I act. Being black to me is just what I am.
So what if like a black person says to you, you don't act black?
I've had black people say that to me.
Yeah. And
I just don't get it. How do they? I always ask like, how do you want me to act then? Because I wasn't raised to act like that. And my mum's black.
Yeah.
And my dad's not around, innit? So
yeah.
I've only had black influence in my life, so I don't really see.
Do you feel like
I've even got people that are mixed race that I know say that to me, and the parent that predominantly in their life is white, and in my head I'm like, well, in paper aren't I been brought up with more black influence than you?
I hear you.
My mum's black.
I hear
It
you.
doesn't really make sense to me. I don't know how you equate it. What is being black?
What is blackness?
What is blackness? Because to me, blackness is being black. Like, that's it. That is just it. Like, there's nothing else to it. And there's the culture. No, I love black culture. I listen to it. I shouldn't even have to justify the fact that I'm black.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Do you know what I mean? I feel like you wear it on your skin.
I'm with you. I think that like sometimes, but I think people like that are proud of like their culture or their heritage, where they come from, who they are. I feel like if they don't see the same in you, then they don't hold you like as a high regard.
See, that to me, that's a prejudice though. Because if you like, how could you try and discount someone's race? I think that's a bit crazy, to be honest. Because that is a prejudice. You saying because you don't act this way and you don't fit this specific set of criteria, you're not black to me. Yeah, that's prejudice.
I hear you.
That is prejudice. And in a way, that's what people are marching now to stop happening.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But then people can do it to their own race, and I think it's sometimes I feel like people aren't as united as they should be, and they're so quick to, like with these brands, tear down these brands that are voicing support. Yeah. Whether it's genuine or not, we can't prove that.
How do you identify yourself with regards to race?
I just identify myself as mixed.
Yeah.
Because I do think I am mixed. Yeah, do you know what I mean? And that's not because of the way I act or the way I was raised. It's just because that, to me, that is what I am.
That is who you are.
That is who I am. Yeah, I've always been mixed. Even without having my dad's influence in my life, I still am mixed. It doesn't make me any less white. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
So I don't really get that. I don't really get it.
That makes
I don't know if that's just me being quite tone deaf, but I just don't get it. To me, if you're black, you're black. Yeah. And if you're black and you don't listen to DMX and you don't listen to Tupac, that doesn't make you not black. It doesn't make you not black.
I hear you 100%.
And I just think if someone tries to use that as an argument to discount your cultural identity, I just think that's crazy.
Are there any stereotypes like associated with mixed race people that you're aware of?
Yeah. So like, I feel like the stereotypes that mixed race people inherently think they're better than black people. Yeah. And like they act prestige, they act like they're too nice. And I've heard them stereotypes, and I've seen them stereotypes, but it doesn't make it a blanket statement. I think stereotypes are just really bad, I think. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like you spend your whole life trying to fight against these stereotypes, and people shouldn't prejudge you before you walk in the room. I feel like
it actually boils down to that.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're, no matter what demographic you are, I feel like the fight should be, if you walk into a room, they judge you as an individual. There's no pre-existing thoughts of who you might be. If you walk into your room and you're cordial and you introduce yourself correct, I just don't see, there should be no prejudging. That should be who you are.
I want to be Omar before I'm Black Omar.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing, is I feel like sometimes when you're a minority, you walk into a room and people already think they know who you are. Yeah. And that's what we need to overcome. You need to just be treated as an individual. I feel like sometimes, it's not even just about black, I feel like sometimes when you're generally a minority, you're treated as that whole demographic. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I'm with you. So like if someone's gay, people already think they know what that person's going to be like, don't they? I'm with you. I think if someone's black, they already think they know what that... If you say like a black person's going to walk in this room in 10 minutes, people think they know what kind of person's going to walk in.
They're already anticipating a specific type of person. Yeah, yeah.
If a person that's not that thought in their head walks in,
then they're surprised.
And that's an issue. That's an issue.
It happens.
Do you know what I mean? And even statements that aren't racist that people say, like, "Oh, I didn't really expect you to be like that," or "You're really well spoken." Yeah. You're a bit like,
it's true.
Why are you surprised by that? You didn't know me.